Commander Hannah Kim stared out the viewport of her small Earth exploration craft. The alien ship was enormous, bigger than any human vessel ever built. It loomed against the blackness of space, making her feel tiny. The ship belonged to the Galactic Consortium, a union of thousands of alien species that had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. "Commander, they're hailing us again," said Jun, her communications officer. Hannah nodded. "Put them through." The alien that appeared on screen had blue skin and 4 eyes. It spoke in perfect English. "Commander Kim, we have reviewed your planet's status. Earth will make a fine addition to our consortium. We offer you basic warp technology and medical advances. In exchange, we require access to your planet's resources." Hannah kept her face neutral. This was the third such conversation, and the pattern was clear. The aliens saw humans as children, barely worth notice except for what they could take from Earth. "That's very generous," she said carefully. "Our leaders will need time to consider your proposal." The alien made a gesture that might have been a shrug. "Of course. Primitive species often struggle with such decisions. We will await your response." When the screen went dark, Hannah turned to June. "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them it's exactly as we expected." Jun nodded. "Do you think they suspect anything about the Cronus project?" "No," Hannah said. "They think we're just another species fumbling our way to the stars." Back on Earth, in a hidden facility deep under the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Min Park watched his team make final adjustments to the experimental ship. Unlike any vessel humanity had built before, this one wasn't designed to push through space. It would bend space itself. "Director Yoon is on the line," his assistant told him. Dr. Park picked up the secure phone. "This is Park. The consortium is acting exactly as predicted," said Director Yoon. "They think we're desperate for their technology." Park smiled. "If they only knew. How much longer do we need to keep up this act?" "Just 3 more days. Keep the Cronus drive ready." For decades, humans had watched the stars, knowing they weren't alone. When alien signals were first detected, Earth's governments had made a secret decision. Humanity would appear weaker than it was. While publicly developing conventional space travel, the best scientists worked in secret on something revolutionary. The aliens used massive wormhole gates for travel between stars. These gates took years to build and enormous resources. Earth had found a different path. 3 days later, in orbit around Earth, a meeting was taking place aboard the consortium ship. 4 human representatives sat across from 6 alien diplomats. The room was tense. "These terms are not negotiable," said the lead alien, a tall being named Lox. "Earth will provide mining rights to all rare metals. The consortium will establish bases on your moon and Mars." Director Yoon, leading the human delegation, looked troubled. "And in return, we will share level 2 technology with you, enough to improve your lifespans by 30% and allow limited travel within your solar system." The other humans shifted uncomfortably, playing their parts perfectly. Yoon spread his hands. "Before we agree to anything, we would like to show you something. A small token of Earth's potential contribution to the consortium." Lox looked amused. "Of course." Yoon pressed a button on his wrist device. "Dr. Park, you may proceed with the demonstration." Far away, near Jupiter, Dr. Park gave the command. "Activate the Cronus drive." The experimental ship, named Dawn, was small and sleek. Unlike the bulky consortium vessels, it had no visible engines. As the drive engaged, space around the ship seemed to ripple like water. Then the ship vanished. In the meeting room, an alarm sounded. One of the alien diplomats rushed to a console. "Something is approaching the ship at impossible speed." Outside the viewport, the Dawn appeared, seemingly from nowhere. It hovered beside the massive alien vessel, having traveled from Jupiter to Earth orbit in less than 5 seconds. Lox stood up, all 4 eyes wide. "How did you do that? There is no wormhole gate in this system." Director Yoon smiled for the first time. "We don't need gates. The Cronus drive lets us fold space directly. Distance means nothing. Impossible, whispered Lox. Our scientists determined such technology was theoretical at best. And yet, there it is, said Yoon, pointing to the small Earth ship. Oh, and the drive can also shift a vessel microseconds through time, enough to make it impossible to target with weapons. The room fell silent. The balance of power had just shifted dramatically. Earth wasn't joining the consortium as a junior partner. They were bringing technology that would change everything. Lox sat down heavily. Your people have been concealing this capability. We needed to understand your intentions first, Yoon explained. Now we can discuss a real partnership, as equals. That night, as the dawn returned to Earth, Hannah Kim received new orders. She would command the first diplomatic mission using Cronus technology to visit the consortium homeworlds. Humanity was about to take its place among the stars, not as followers, but as leaders of a new age of exploration. As she packed her things, Hannah looked again at the alien ship through her viewport. They had come expecting to find primitives. Instead, they discovered that humans had unlocked the secrets of space and time itself. The journey was just beginning. Admiral Ta Park adjusted his formal uniform one last time before entering the grand meeting hall on the consortium space station. The station hung in space near Jupiter, a massive structure of gleaming metal and strange, alien materials that shifted colors in the light of the distant sun. Beside him walked his aide, Lieutenant G, who whispered, "They're all inside, sir. 23 representatives from the major consortium powers." Ta nodded, his face calm despite the importance of this moment. For months, Earth had played along with the consortium's patronizing diplomatic efforts. Today, everything would change. The doors slid open, revealing the circular chamber with a central platform. Around it sat the alien representatives, each more strange than the last. Some had multiple limbs, others hovered above their seats. One appeared to be made entirely of shifting liquid contained in a transparent suit. At the head of the assembly stood Ambassador Nero, a being whose body resembled polished crystal. Light played through Nero's form as he moved, creating dazzling patterns. Despite this beauty, his attitude was anything but pleasant. "Admiral Park," Nero said, his voice producing a slight musical chime. "We are pleased you could join us. Has Earth reached a decision regarding our generous offer of integration?" Ta stepped onto the central platform, aware that every alien eye, or sensory organ, was fixed on him. The weight of humanity's future rested on what happened next. "The people of Earth thank the consortium for its interest in our world," Ta began, his voice steady. "We have carefully considered your proposals." A holographic display activated above the platform, showing images of Earth, its cities, and its people. "You've offered us Level 2 technology, medical advances that could extend our lives by 30 years, limited space travel capabilities," Ta continued. "In exchange, you want exclusive mining rights to 17 elements on our periodic table and permission to establish bases across our solar system." Nero's crystalline body glinted as he moved forward. "These are standard terms for a species of your development level. You should be grateful for such consideration." Several of the alien representatives made sounds that might have been laughter. One insectoid being clicked its mandibles in what Ta had learned was a gesture of amusement. "Before we respond to your offer," Ta said, "Earth would like to demonstrate something. A small contribution we might bring to the consortium." Nero made a dismissive gesture with a crystalline arm. "Certainly, Admiral. Though we have thoroughly surveyed your technological capabilities," his tone became almost parental. "Your propulsion systems are quaint, but we are curious what you wish to show us." The holographic display changed, now showing the vast expanse of the solar system. A small blue dot highlighted Earth's position, while a red dot marked the space station near Jupiter. Far at the edge of the display, a green dot pulsed near Neptune. "That green marker represents Observer 1, an Earth vessel currently in orbit around Neptune," Ta explained. "As you know, Neptune is approximately 4.3 billion kilometers from our current position." The insectoid representative chittered something, and an automatic translator conveyed. Using your primitive fusion drives, it would take your ship months to reach us. Tai smiled slightly. That's correct. He touched his communication device. Observer 1 is ready. Admiral, came the transmission from Earth. Tai looked around at the assembled aliens. Please direct your attention to the display. On the hologram, the green dot near Neptune began to pulse more rapidly. In actual space, just outside the massive viewports of the meeting chamber, nothing was visible except the stars and the curve of Jupiter below. Observer 1 has activated its main drive system, Tai announced calmly. Suddenly, a flash of light appeared outside the station. A small Earth vessel, sleek and unlike any the consortium had seen before, hovered just meters from the viewport. The green dot on the display had instantaneously moved from Neptune to their location. The chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens rose from their seats, some making high-pitched sounds of alarm. Others rushed to sensor stations around the room. Impossible, cried a squid-like being, tentacles waving frantically. There was no acceleration pattern, no approach vector. Ambassador Nero stood frozen, his crystalline form reflecting his shock in ripples of color that pulsed from deep red to pale blue. What you just witnessed, Ta said into the stunned silence that followed, is the Cronus Drive, a human invention that allows our ships to fold space-time, moving instantaneously from one point to another without passing through the intervening space. This cannot be, Nero whispered, his musical voice now discordant. Our scientists determined such technology was at least 1,000 years beyond your capabilities. Ta shrugged. We took a different approach than your scientists expected. Outside, Observer 1 performed a slow, deliberate circle around the station. Its hull bore the Earth Space Force insignia and its name in simple letters. The Cronus Drive requires no wormhole gates, Ta continued, no massive infrastructure. A ship equipped with it can travel anywhere in the galaxy in moments. A gray-skinned alien with 6 eyes leaned forward. How many of these vessels do you possess? Ta smiled but didn't answer directly. Earth is prepared to discuss sharing this technology as part of a revised agreement with the consortium. As equals, not as a subordinate species, Ambassador Nero had recovered enough to approach the platform. You deceived us, he said, his voice a dangerous chime. You concealed your true capabilities. We were cautious, Ta corrected. History teaches us that when advanced civilizations encounter less developed ones, the results are rarely favorable for the latter. We needed to understand your intentions first. He gestured to the viewports where Observer 1 continued its silent patrol. Now we can negotiate as equals. Earth doesn't need level 2 technology. We've developed something far beyond that on our own. As the implications sank in, the consortium representatives began talking urgently among themselves. Their carefully planned expansion to Earth had just become something entirely different. The primitive species they had hoped to easily control now possessed technology that could revolutionize space travel throughout the galaxy. Todd watched their reactions with quiet satisfaction. The first stage of Earth's emergence onto the galactic stage had been set. The real negotiations were about to begin. The meeting room on the consortium station had fallen completely silent. The only sound was the soft hum of life support systems. Ambassador Nero's crystalline body had lost its rainbow shimmer, now reflecting only a dull blue that showed his shock. Impossible, Nero whispered, all his earlier arrogance gone. You've mastered instantaneous facial displacement. Admiral Ta watched the alien diplomat carefully. The demonstration had worked even better than expected. The consortium representatives looked stunned. Some were frantically checking data on their devices, while others simply stared at the Earth ship still visible through the viewport. We call it the Cronus Drive, Todd explained calmly. Not only can we fold space, but we can manipulate our position in the time stream to a limited degree. A tall, thin alien with gray skin stood up. Time manipulation. You expect us to believe humans have solved problems that the greatest consortium minds have studied for thousands of years. Ty pressed a button on his wrist device. I think it's time we brought in our expert. Dr. Sunley has requested permission to board the station. The station's commander, a bulky reptilian being, nodded reluctantly. Permission granted. 10 minutes later, the doors to the meeting chamber opened. Dr. Sunley walked in, carrying only a small tablet. She looked ordinary in her simple Earth uniform, her gray hair pulled back in a neat bun. Yet the room full of aliens went silent at her entrance. Thank you for allowing me to join you, Sun said, bowing slightly to the assembly. I understand you have questions about the Cronus Drive. Ambassador Nero had recovered enough to speak properly. Dr. Lee, the consortium has mapped and built wormhole gates for 12,000 years. These gates require enormous resources and energy. They take decades to construct. And you claim to have solved this problem. Sun smiled. We didn't solve your problem. We found a different approach entirely. She tapped her tablet, and a hologram appeared above it. It showed a 3D model of space with rippling waves moving through it. Your wormhole technology forces space to connect at 2 distant points, Sun explained. It's like drilling a tunnel through a mountain. Effective but extremely energy-intensive. The hologram changed to show a small ship. We discovered that space and time are more malleable than previously thought, Sun continued. Rather than brute forcing our way through space-time, we learned to ask it politely to let us through. A squid-like alien made a bubbling sound that the translator converted to laughter. Ask space politely. Is this human humor? Sun shook her head. It's a metaphor, but not far from the truth. The Cronus Drive creates a resonance field that temporarily harmonizes with the natural vibration patterns of space-time. When these patterns align, the fabric of reality itself briefly recognizes the ship as being in 2 places at once, then resolves this paradox by placing the ship at its destination. She looked around at the confused alien faces. Think of it like this. If you need to cross a river, you can build a bridge. That's your wormhole approach. It works, but it's expensive and permanent. Our method is more like knowing exactly where to step on stones that are already in the river. A hush fell over the room as the implications became clear. The consortium had spent thousands of years building bridges across the galaxy. Humans had found the stepping stones. An elderly alien with pale blue skin and 6 arms spoke up. I am Jex, chief engineer of the consortium gate network. We have thousands of wormhole gates connecting our worlds. Are you saying these are now obsolete? Sun's face showed sympathy. Not obsolete. Just one approach among several. The gates still have advantages for regular, high-volume traffic. But for exploration, military applications, and reaching places without gates, the Cronus Drive offers new possibilities. Nero's crystal body had begun to pulse with red light, a sign of distress or anger. If what you say is true, this technology will completely disrupt the power balance of the consortium. Worlds without gate access could suddenly reach anywhere. Trade routes would be meaningless. Defense systems would be useless. Change often brings disruption, Admiral Ta said, but also opportunity. The room erupted in multiple conversations, some aliens speaking so quickly their translators couldn't keep up. Ambassador Nero moved to confer with his aides, while others approached Sun with more questions. One small alien with features like a cat pushed through the crowd. What about the time aspect? You mentioned manipulating your position in the time stream. Sun nodded. Only to a very limited degree, microseconds at most. Enough to phase a ship slightly out of sync with normal space-time, making it extremely difficult to target with weapons or sensors. The alien's ears flattened against its head, so your ships could appear anywhere, anytime, undetectable until they wished to be seen. That's correct, Sun said. The security implications weren't lost on anyone in the room. For thousands of years, the consortium's military strength had been based on controlling the wormhole gates. Any hostile force had to come through predictable entry points. The Cronus Drive changed everything. A tall insectoid being clicked its mandibles together before speaking. What does Earth want in exchange for this technology? Admiral Ta stepped forward again. That's what we're here to discuss. Earth doesn't want to disrupt the peace of the galaxy. We wish to join the galactic community, but as equals, not as a primitive species to be exploited. Nero returned to the center of the room. His crystalline form had stabilized, reflecting a more composed state. The consortium must reconsider its approach to Earth. I request a 3-day recess to consult with our leadership. Ta nodded. Of course, we understand this is a significant development. As the meeting adjourned, Sun found herself surrounded by curious alien scientists, all eager to understand how humans had made such a breakthrough. One question came up repeatedly. How had Earth, with its limited resources and isolated position, solved a problem that had stumped the combined genius of thousands of species? Sometimes, Sun told them, being outside the established way of thinking is an advantage. You've been building better bridges for thousands of years. We never learned that was the only way to cross the river. Captain Jin Kang stood on the bridge of the ESF Pathfinder, watching the stars shift outside the viewports. 6 months ago, humans had been nobodies in the galaxy. Now, Earth ships could jump across vast distances in seconds. The Pathfinder had just traveled 50 light-years in less time than it took to drink a cup of coffee. Status report, Jin said, turning to her crew. All systems normal, Captain, replied her first officer, Hyun. Cronus drive cooling after jump. We can make another fold in 3 minutes if needed. Jin nodded, pleased. The Pathfinder was Earth's newest diplomatic vessel, built specially to showcase their revolutionary technology to the consortium homeworlds. Behind Jin, 12 of Earth's best engineers and scientists prepared for meetings with alien leaders. The ship also carried trade agreements, technology exchange protocols, and defense pacts, all heavily favoring Earth. It's hard to believe how much has changed, said Dr. Yuna, the lead engineer. 6 months ago, they treated us like children. Now they're begging for our technology. Jin smiled. Amazing what happens when you can do something nobody else can. The consortium had existed for 12,000 years. They had built massive wormhole gates connecting thousands of worlds. These gates took decades to construct and enormous resources to maintain. The Cronus drive made all of that old technology nearly obsolete overnight. Captain, incoming transmission from Earth Command, called out the communications officer. Jin straightened her uniform. Put it through. The main screen showed Admiral Ta Park, his face serious. Captain Kang, I have concerning news. Our intelligence networks have detected unusual activity within the Hegemony fleet. Jin frowned. The Hegemony was a powerful faction within the consortium, militaristic and controlling. They had dominated interstellar shipping for thousands of years by controlling key wormhole gates. Earth's technology threatened everything they had built. What kind of activity, sir? Jin asked. They're gathering warships near Proxima Centauri, Tay replied. At least 30 vessels, including 3 dreadnoughts. Intelligence suggests they're planning to launch an attack on Earth before Cronus technology can spread further. The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Proxima Centauri was the closest star system to Earth, just over 4 light-years away. For conventional ships, that would be a journey of years. For ships with the Cronus drive, it was seconds. What are our orders? Jin asked calmly. Continue your diplomatic mission to the consortium homeworlds, Ta said. We need those agreements signed. Earth's defense forces are on high alert, and we've deployed our Cronus-equipped ships in defensive positions. Jin nodded. And if the Hegemony attacks? A small smile appeared on the Admiral's face. Let them try. After the transmission ended, Jin called a meeting of her senior staff. They gathered in the ship's conference room, looking at holographic displays of the Hegemony fleet movements. They don't understand what they're up against, said Hyun, studying the enemy formations. Their ships are powerful, but they rely on conventional weapons, laser arrays, plasma cannons, missile systems. Dr. Yuma nodded. All those weapons require targeting systems. You can't hit what you can't predict. With our temporal displacement capability, we can shift microseconds out of phase with normal space. Their weapons will fire at where we appear to be, not where we actually are. Jin looked around at her team. The hegemony has existed for thousands of years. They've conquered hundreds of worlds. We shouldn't underestimate them. But they've never faced anything like us, said her tactical officer. Their entire strategy depends on controlling fixed travel points. We don't need their gates. We can appear anywhere, anytime. As the meeting continued, Jin received another transmission, this one private. She excused herself and took it in her quarters. The face that appeared was that of Nero, the consortium ambassador who had once dismissed Earth's technology as quaint. Captain Kang, Nero said, his crystalline form shimmering with worried colors. I must speak with you urgently. The Hegemony Council has rejected all proposals for peaceful integration of Cronus technology. They see it as an existential threat. We're aware they're gathering ships, Jin replied carefully. Nero's colors shifted to deep red. It's worse than that. They've activated ancient weapons platforms around Proxima Centauri, technology forbidden by consortium law for 9,000 years. Planet killers. Captain. Jin felt a chill. Why are you telling me this, Ambassador? The hegemony is part of your consortium. Because, Nero said quietly, the consortium is changing. Many of us believe Earth's approach, sharing technology rather than hoarding it, represents a better future. The hegemony would drag us back to darker times. After the transmission ended, Jin stared out her viewport at the distant stars. She had been born on a small island on Earth, had never imagined traveling to other worlds. Now she commanded a ship that could cross the galaxy in days, and Earth's future hung in the balance. She returned to the bridge and gave new orders. Change of plans. Set course for Proxima Centauri. Her first officer looked surprised. Captain, our orders were to continue to the consortium homeworlds. Sometimes you need to show strength before you can talk peace, Jin said. The hegemony needs to understand what they're dealing with. The Pathfinder changed course. As they prepared for the jump to Proxima Centauri, Jin sent a message to Earth Command explaining her decision. The response came quickly. Proceed with caution. Reinforcements will follow. Hours later, the Pathfinder emerged from a space fold near Proxima Centauri. Immediately, their sensors detected the hegemony fleet. 45 warships in battle formation, more than intelligence had estimated. They've spotted us, reported the tactical officer. They're charging weapons. Jin took her seat in the command chair. Activate temporal displacement field. Begin recording. As the hegemony ships fired their first salvos, the Pathfinder shifted microseconds out of phase. Massive energy beams passed harmlessly through the space where the Earth ship appeared to be. Send our message to all hegemony vessels, Jin ordered. On every hegemony ship, commanders watched as Jin's face appeared on their screens. Her message was simple. The age of gates is ending. The time of walls and borders is past. Earth offers friendship and cooperation to all species. Choose wisely. As she spoke, 10 more Earth ships folded into space around the Pathfinder, each activating its temporal displacement field. To the hegemony fleet, it must have looked like ghosts had appeared among them, vessels they could see but couldn't touch. The battle for the future of galactic travel had begun. The hegemony warships appeared near Earth's moon without warning. 50 massive vessels, each bristling with weapons that could shatter continents. Their commander, a battle-scarred alien named Krell, stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled. His mandibles clicked together in satisfaction at the sight of the blue planet ahead. Primitive world, he growled to his officers. They have a few ships with special drives. We have a fleet that has conquered 100 worlds. His second-in-command bowed. Our spies report only 12 Earth vessels with Cronus technology. The rest of their fleet uses conventional drives. Then victory will be swift, Krell said. Target their major cities. Once they see their homes burning, they will surrender the Cronus technology to us. The hegemony ships moved forward, spreading out to surround Earth. Their sensors detected no movement from the planet, no defensive measures, no fleeing ships. "They don't even see us coming," Krell laughed. "Fire when ready." The lead ships launched their first attack. Massive energy beams lanced toward Earth and passed through empty space. The beams hit nothing. "What happened?" Krell demanded. "Did they detect us and evacuate?" "No, Commander," said his tactical officer, confusion in his voice. "The planet is still there, but our weapons, they're missing somehow." Suddenly, Krell's ship shook violently. Warning alarms blared across the bridge. "We're being attacked," shouted an officer. "Earth ships. They're appearing and disappearing all around us." Outside, small Earth vessels blinked into existence, fired precise shots at the hegemony ship's engines, then vanished before return fire could target them. Each Earth ship stayed in normal space for less than a second. Krell grabbed a console as his ship shuddered again. How are they doing this? Where are they coming from? On his view screen, Earth itself seemed to flicker. The truth dawned on him too late. The entire planet was protected by a massive temporal displacement field. Like the ships, it was shifting microseconds into the future, making attacks pass through harmlessly. "Commander," called his engineer, "strange devices are attaching to our hulls, some kind of gravitational technology." The devices were small satellites dropped by the Earth ships. Once activated, they created localized gravity fields that prevented the hegemony vessels from activating their engines or jump drives. The entire fleet was trapped. "This is Admiral Topark of Earth Space Force," came a transmission to all hegemony ships. "Your vessels are disabled. Your weapons cannot harm us. Surrender now." Krell roared in anger, but there was nothing he could do. His mighty fleet had been neutralized in minutes without a single Earth casualty. The battle that was supposed to cement hegemony control of the galaxy for another 1,000 years was over before it truly began. 3 cycles later, roughly 3 Earth years, everything had changed. The old consortium with its rigid power structure had collapsed. In its place stood the Galactic Alliance, a new organization where all member species had equal standing. Earth, with its revolutionary technology, held founding member status. Admiral Hannah Kim, now Earth's chief representative to the Alliance Council, stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station. The massive space station orbited a neutral star at the center of Alliance space. Through the huge windows, she could see ships from 100 different worlds arriving and departing, many using Cronus-derived technology that Earth had shared with its new allies. "Magnificent, isn't it?" said a musical voice behind her. Hannah turned to see Ambassador Nero, his crystalline form glittering with peaceful blue and green lights. Once an arrogant consortium official, he had become Earth's strongest supporter in the new alliance. Many credited his diplomatic skills with helping to form the new galactic order. "I was just thinking about how much has changed," Hannah said. 4 years ago, we were afraid your people would try to conquer Earth." Nero moved to stand beside her at the window. "And we thought you were primitives barely worth noticing." His form rippled with colors that indicated humor. "We were both wrong." Below them, in the station's central docking bay, engineers from 20 different species worked together on the newest class of exploration vessel. The ship was massive, 3 times larger than any previous Earth design. Its mission would take it beyond the edges of the Milky Way galaxy to explore neighboring star clusters for the first time. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when we first made contact?" Naro asked. Hannah shook her head, smiling. "We just wanted to explore the stars. Instead, we remade the galaxy." She gestured to the diverse aliens working together on the new ship. "The Cronus drive was important, but I think what really changed things was the idea that innovation can come from anywhere. Even from species considered primitive," Nero agreed. "That was the real revelation. For 12,000 years, the consortium believed we had reached the pinnacle of development. Your people showed us how wrong we were." A young Earth officer approached them, saluting. Admiral Kim, Ambassador Nero, the new ship is ready for its naming ceremony. They followed him to the observation platform overlooking the docking bay. Representatives from all Alliance species had gathered to witness the historic moment. The ship below them gleamed, its hull marked with the symbols of every founding world of the Alliance. "Have they decided on a name?" Nero asked. Hana nodded. "Unity." It seemed appropriate. When her turn came to speak, Hannah kept her words simple. 4 years ago, humans were alone in the universe, looking up at the stars and wondering if anyone else was out there. Today, we stand with friends from 100 worlds, preparing to explore not just our galaxy, but beyond. As the ceremony ended, Hannah received a message on her communication device. It was from Dr. Sunley, who had continued developing the Cronus Drive technology. "The new prototype works," the message read. "We can now fold space across 10 million light-years. The Andromeda Galaxy is within reach." Hana showed the message to Nero, whose crystalline form briefly flickered with shock. 10 million light-years, he whispered. "That would mean that the whole local group of galaxies is now explorable." Hana finished. "We're just getting started, my friend." As night fell on the station's artificial cycle, Hannah remained at the window, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of the Milky Way, new worlds waited. New species, perhaps, who might join the Alliance. New discoveries that would once again transform their understanding of the universe. Humanity's journey to the stars had begun with a simple wish to explore. It had led to a revolution that transformed a galaxy. And now, it promised to connect galaxies themselves. The adventure was just beginning.